Okay, this video is called The Health Matrix, and this is what happens to the United States citizen. And pretty much it's almost the same in all Western Christian countries, unfortunately, these days. Basically, the citizen is the sacrificial lamb. They are abused by most of the institutions. Unfortunately, here's how it works. The woman typically is forced to work because the countries have become so poor and because they're brainwashed to think that their job's more important than their career. They start to realize the truth when they're about 40, after it's kind of too late for them to change their path. But they typically only are given 3 months off for maternal leave, which is not enough for breastfeeding. Breastfeeding should really be 6 months or more. The baby formulas are rather toxic. They'll often be in an aluminum can with a BPA lining that has tears in it, thus feminizing the child and lowering the IQ. Soy also feminizes, decreases fertility. They'll contain HG from high fructose corn syrup, not uncommonly glyphosate, GMO, sprayed on the soy and other non-organic crops, atrazine, feminizing chemical sprayed on the corn. So the poor baby starts off, with food poisoning, okay? The tap water is also poisoned. It contains aluminum, so-called clarifying agent, fluoride, a neurotoxin, gut toxin, fertility toxin. EDCs means endocrine disrupting chemicals, which primarily means estrogenic chemicals that feminize. All this feminization, it's not by accident. It's done on purpose to make people weak. Okay, the next thing is the food. The food, is heavily poisoned. You've got everything from aspartame, neurotoxic sweetener, stevia, causes infertility, increases the risk of infertility. The standard American diet, paleo, even the Mediterranean diet are BS. They're just, SAD is the worst. Paleo is terrible. Glyphosate, paleo is not much better. There's certain circumstances for paleo, but it's basically terrible. Okay, glyphosate, that's a major mitochondrial inhibitor and gut toxin, fatty liver, diabetes, a whole bunch of things. Soy, we talked about that. Atrazine, we talked about that. BT corn, GMO corn, irritating the gut, increased allergies and gut problems. High fructose corn syrup and mercury, often contaminating it. Apeel is this new toxic fungicide preservative sprayed on the outside of a lot of foods, especially avocados. MSG is a neurotoxin, and it's also increases risk of infertility. Same thing with MFG. Oils, they're all bad. All fried food is bad. You shouldn't eat anything with oils in it. Heavy metals and powders. I will not eat any powdered food for that reason. The food dyes are often neurotoxic, toxic to other parts of the body. Caffeine is a neurotoxin. MJ and CBD are poisons, neurotoxins. People should not be ingesting that stuff. Okay, so your water is poisoned, your baby formula is poisoned, your diet's poisoned, your air is poisoned with these chemtrails containing aluminum, mercury, and who knows what else, strontium, barium, and who knows what else. Cleaning chemicals are often highly toxic. Ventilate the area if you work with that. Air fresheners are toxic. Ventilate the area if you're around that stuff. Factories, cremation stuff, burning up amalgams, HG into the air, candles. All that stuff is toxic. You don't want to be inhaling that crap. You don't want to live next to a factory or a coal-burning electrical plant. Personal care products contain estrogenic chemicals, almost all of them. Many of them contain 2 or 3. Why the incidence of upper outer quadrant breast cancer is dramatically more than doubled since the 1920s, because women are shaving their armpits and then rubbing aluminum and estrogenic chemicals on them with the shared lymphatics between the armpit and the left upper outer quadrant of the breast. The dentists don't really know anything, okay? They put mercury into teeth. Amalgams contain mercury, copper, and nickel. They're all freaking toxic, okay? They promote fluoride. They don't know. There's a few smart dentists that write books about what a nonsense this is, but the vast majority of them, 99%, don't know their head from their ass, okay? And they poison a lot of people. Root canals are one of the worst things you could do to yourself. If you got a root canal, get it taken out. Those are... Just read about them. You'll be amazed how bad they are. When you don't know why somebody's sick, make sure you don't forget to check if they've had a root canal or amalgam filling. Sometimes you remove that and they get better. The medical profession has become a big joke. All this stuff's running on atheistic Darwinism. I found over 100 medications that are mitochondrial inhibitors. Okay, that's freaking poisons. Tons of them increase the risk of drug-induced atrial fibrillation. Lots of chemo doesn't even work. It's based on shrinking the tumor, not on increasing survival. What the patient cares about is increased survival. These typical autoimmune patients get these immunosuppressant drugs without even trying to improve their diet and lifestyle, which might cure them, or remove their amalgams, which might cure them. That should always be tried before you commit to lifelong immunosuppressant drugs, which can cause all kinds of problems, including increased infection and cancer. Drugs and surgeries, most of them, some of them are pretty good, but there's a lot of them that don't work, that still get overhyped, like open heart surgery, coronary artery stents, etc. Drugs and grants are just really advertisements. Big pharma, controls the big money. And basically, a researcher is not going to get money unless he promotes their drug. So all the pressure, I call it science spelled with a $ for the letter S, because it's just paid for results. If the scientist doesn't say the drug is beneficial, they will lose their funding. And if they say the drug is bad, God forbid, they'll get fired from the job. The companies will come after them. The universities, and the so-called research centers, they sold out to atheistic Darwinism. They just go for the money. That's why you can't have anything good with atheism, because it all runs on money and hatred. And I'll explain that in a moment, but insurance companies have also sold out. The more the healthcare costs, the more money they make. So they're going to pay only for drugs and surgery because that leads to them making more money. They don't care if you get better. Nobody cares if you get better. That's why I'll get back to what that all means. And also people's brains are poisoned, okay, in the sense that grade school education is fake. They teach look-say instead of phonics, creating dyslexics. ADHD kids are drugged with toxic amphetamine-like medications. They have psychologists in the schools to make the kids worse. They now want mental health screening where they're going to just stick more kids on drugs. They're castrating children, and they use a euphemistic lie calling it gender-affirming surgery. No, it's castration of these kids so they can never have their own kids the rest of their life. This drag queen story hour stuff is frickin' ridiculous. All of that stuff should be illegal. We've just got, you need to have noble masculinity. You put real men in charge of a frickin' school. There will be no more castration of children, okay? This BS will come to an end immediately. There will be no drag queen story hour BS, okay? This is insane. Okay, the high schools, they trick the young people into, they badmouth the history of the United States. It's the greatest founding of any country ever in the history of the world, but they badmouth it because they don't want kids growing up knowing how great Western civilization is, because otherwise they might want to defend it. They don't want them to defend it. They want them feminized, stupid, and ignorant, so they'll allow it to collapse. And this is funded primarily by the billionaire perverts who want to bring back slavery and reduce the number of people in the population, okay? It just goes on and on. The colleges, pre-med education, it's all fake. I mean, basically physics, calculus, they have nothing to do with medical care, okay? Kids spend so much time learning mathematics and physics, and what they learn in biology is really, I was counting the number of mitochondria in a bug's ass, okay? That has nothing to do with helping people to get better from disease or understanding disease. Feminism is a brain disease of women that makes them worthless, okay? Socialism is a destruction of society. As Ayn Rand had said, the difference between socialism and communism is a difference between suicide and murder. They're both destruction. Look at Western Europe. As it turned its back on God and fell for this socialism BS, it was taken over by communists, and now its borders have been opened up, and they're flooding the place with the equivalent of military-age men, infantry troops of Muslims from third world countries who just beat up and destroy them. And don't get me wrong, the communists are smart. They hate the Muslims. They just use them to kill the Christians. But once the two have destroyed each other, then they're just going to take whatever's left and make it into a slavery center. Okay, what else here? The dental education's a joke. Med school education's a joke. PhD education's a joke. It's all based on teaching them to sell things, teaching them to sell drugs and surgery and imaging tests to make more money. They're never taught how to empower the patient with healthy diet and lifestyle and understanding toxicology, what to avoid. Okay, the midstream media is owned by the billionaire perverts that just lie to the people and make them believe whatever latest nonsense comes along. And it also tries to keep them all divided and arguing and fighting about silly, stupid things. When they say diversity, they don't mean diversity of talent, skill, What they mean is to keep the population divided. That's why it's a joke. A lot of these words that people think are something good, they're really a joke by the billionaire perverts to laugh at the stupid proles, okay? They also have a lot of censorship on the internet, the web, and shadow banning of the truth. To try to keep the truth hidden from the proles. Instead, big money is behind promoting lies and nonsense to keep the public weak and stupid, okay? And there's all these bogus global controller organizations that what they really want is Christian genocide, because the Christians are especially the white Christian men, they're the only group that has any remote possibility of stopping this tidal wave of destruction of civilization, with the goal of the billionaire perverts to basically have big slave camps, a reduced population, okay, and then just to kind of enjoy the world for themselves without all these proles polluting things. That's kind of how they see it. Okay, so the net result of all this craziness is to produce an American population where the majority of people are fat, sick, stupid, they're docile and feminized, they're conformist, they're functional illiterates, because this type of population is weak and incompetent. They also do things like modern art museums, which degrade real art, and they keep the real art and the beauty and the creativity hidden from the public, so the public thinks all there is crap. Nothing here is worth preserving or protecting. Okay, so basically, how's this going to turn out? There's only two ways it's going to go. Man's way is to continue doing stuff what the billionaire perverts want. The billionaire perverts have a lot of money. Money is the power to pay other people to do stuff, okay? Billionaire perverts, you can get a lot of work out of people for $50,000. They can control a lot of people, and then they can control the midstream media to keep on publishing lies that the stupid people will believe. So they have a lot of power. They want atheism because atheism makes them the equivalent of God, okay, on earth, a so-called God, meaning that might is right, and might means money in the modern world, the ability to control other people. And it runs on hate because they hate the pros. They despise them. They think of proles the way other people think of insects, okay, of mosquitoes. They want to get rid of them, okay? And they just pay for lying that is destructive to the proles, okay? And then it just uses dollars to pay people off. And almost everybody is corruptible because most people are not Christians, okay? If you come from one of these Eastern countries, they don't have a religion. They don't have a God. Confucianism is not a religion, it's a philosophy. Confucius was a guy. Buddha's not a god, he was a guy. Buddhist and Confucianism, they can't stand up to this communist bullshit, okay? And same, Hindu's really an atheist. You look at the Hindu schools, they're atheistic, okay? It's not a religion, all right? What that means is people who don't have a God-based religion like Christianity, they cannot stand up to bullshit because they don't have any moral foundation to stand up with it. In these populations, what you got a lot of smart people, but they try to take care of themselves, have a good life for themselves, for their family, and some will do a little bit for their co-ethnics maybe, but they don't give a rat's tail about the world at large. They're never trained to do that, okay? It's not part of their system. The only thing that can make things better, really, is a return to Christian ethics in the Western world. Okay, that's it. Because where this other stuff is headed towards is open borders, letting in all these third world savages to commit crime and to destroy the native population, kill off the Christians. And then they're going to declare martial law, impose slavery, and you're just going to have a population of misery, poverty, and declining numbers. Okay? God's way is resurrect individual rights, like in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And you need to have laissez-faire capitalism, not a rigged system where people don't have a chance, but an open system where people are rewarded for their hard work and efforts. You have to have Christian ethics. You don't have to be a Christian, but you have to have Christian ethics, which values the individual and the truth greater than money. So you can stand up, because you have to have something that can stand up to the money. If you can't stand up to money, billionaire perverts will just control everything. And that's the way it's going right now. But you need something that will respect truth, individualism. That will lead to freedom. It'll lead to great wealth, low crime, and happy people. So anyways, that's the choice we have. And hopefully, the world's going to get better. Hopefully, this is going to happen. I don't know if it is. Right now, the billionaire perverts and atheistic Darwinism and the push to slavery, all this stuff is winning. But it doesn't have to win. Christians are the biggest population in the world. There's like 2.3 billion of them. All they have to do is say, you know what, I want things to get better. Start supporting Christianity and all these good things, and the world will get better. So anyways, let us hope that it does. Let us pray that it does.